Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're going to be talking all about Jon Jones,
Ooh, Jon
the
Jones.
man who many consider to be the Joe 8 of MMA.
Yeah.
But lately he's been stirring up some controversy, and we're here to dissect it all.
Okay, I'm ready.
Our source material today is an article that dives deep into the question.
Okay.
Is Jon Jones ducking a fight with Tom Aspinall,
Interesting.
or is there something else going on?
Yeah, it's interesting because Jones is undeniably one of the greatest fighters we've ever seen.
Yeah.
But his recent comments and actions, especially regarding Aspinall, have really rubbed some fans the wrong way.
Yeah, the article definitely doesn't hold back,
Oh, really?
saying that pretty much everyone except Dana White
Oh, wow.
is tired of his antics. They specifically call out the whole Stipe Miocic
Right.
fight cancellation
Yeah.
and how Jones is seemingly brushing off Aspinall as a potential opponent.
Right. And I think to understand why this is such a big deal,
Yeah.
we need to understand the threat that Aspinall represents. He's a well-rounded heavyweight in his prime with serious knockout power.
hmm
He's on a tear right now, and some even argue that he has a better claim to the title of best heavyweight
Wow.
than Jones, who's only had one fight in the division so far.
Okay, so he's a dangerous opponent, but why would Jones, arguably the greatest of all time, be hesitant to face him?
Well, that's where Jones's history and personality come into play.
Okay.
The article makes a compelling argument that Jones seems almost obsessed with his legacy. He's constantly talking about doubters' rankings and cementing his place in history.
That's definitely true. Even though he's dominated for years, he still seems to have this chip on his shoulder.
Yeah.
And to be fair, there have been those spicy drug test incidents that have
Mm.
tarnished his image a bit.
Yeah.
Maybe that plays into it.
Possibly.
Yeah.
The article compares him to fighters like Georges St. Pierre Fedor, Emelianenko,
Right.
and Anderson Silva, who, while they certainly cared about their legacies, didn't seem as fixated on proving themselves.
Mm.
The irony is, Jones probably has the strongest argument for the Joyette title.
Yeah.
So why is he so insecure?
So is this obsession with his legacy the reason he's avoiding Aspinall?
That's certainly one interpretation, but there's another possibility that the article explores.
Okay.
What if Jones is playing a negotiation game,
Mm.
deliberately downplaying Aspinall
Okay.
to increase hype and ultimately secure a bigger payday
Okay.
for an eventual fight?
Oh, so he's trying to drum up interest and create a must-see event.
Exactly.
Kind of like what happened with Michael Bisping and Dan Henderson.
Exactly.
Or even Colby Covington in his title shots.
Yep.
The article did use those as examples.
It's a classic tactic in combat sports.
Okay.
By dismissing Aspinall now, Jones could be building anticipation for a future showdown that would generate massive pay-per-view buys.
So we've got two possible motivations here, protecting his legacy or maximizing his earnings.
Yeah.
But how does this whole negotiation game actually work? Is he just talking trash to get people riled up?
It's more nuanced than just trash talk. It is about controlling the narrative, creating a perception of Aspinall as an unworthy opponent now, while subtly laying the groundwork for a future mega fight. Think of it like a slow burn.
I see. So by downplaying Aspinall, now he's creating a bigger story for later.
Right.
And that translates to more money for him.
Uh-huh.
Clever, but risky, right?
Yeah.
What if this backfires?
Absolutely. The strategy could easily backfire if fans see through it and view it as blatant ducking.
Yeah.
It could do serious damage to his reputation. The article argues that this would be a significant black mark on his record,
Right.
weakening his claim as the go-to.
Right. And we know how much he cares about that.
Exactly.
So is he a genius strategist or a delusional egomaniac? It's hard to tell.
It really is.
And a lot of this analysis comes from that interview with Kevin Iole,
Right.
which the article uses as its main source, right?
Exactly. It's in that interview that Jones makes some of his most controversial comments,
Yeah.
downplaying Aspinall's talent and even suggesting he'd rather fight Alex Pereira. The article argues that we're left with two possibilities. Either Jones is genuinely delusional about Aspinall's threat,
Okay.
or he's brilliantly playing the long game.
It's a fascinating situation.
Yeah.
We've got Jones, a fighter who's achieved incredible things, but seems consumed by this need to protect his legacy.
Yeah,
And we've got Aspinall, a rising star who poses a legitimate threat.
right.
And all of this plays out against a backdrop of financial incentives and clever mind games.
The stakes are incredibly high for Jones. This situation could either solidify his status as the greatest of all time,
Yeah.
or it could lead to his downfall. It all comes down to how he navigates this delicate balance
Yeah.
between protecting his legacy and securing a massive payday.
Well, before we get into whether he can pull it off,
Hmm.
we need to dig a little deeper into Jones's history and what makes him tick. Where does this obsession with legacy come from, and how has it shaped his career? That's what we'll explore next time.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the complex world of Jon Jones. Last time we left off with the question of why Jones, a fighter who's achieved almost everything, seems so consumed by this need to protect his legacy.
Right. It's almost like he's battling ghosts from the past, constantly looking over his shoulder. So what's the source of this insecurity?
Well, the article digs into Jones's past, suggesting that certain events and criticisms might have shaped this mindset. It's no secret that Jones has faced his fair share of controversies outside the octagon, from failed drug tests to legal troubles. These incidents, while not directly impacting his fighting ability, have definitely tarnished his image and fueled the arguments of his detractors.
That makes sense. It's like he's trying to overcompensate for those blemishes on his record, constantly seeking validation to prove he's still the best despite the controversies.
Exactly. And the article contrasts Jones's approach with that of other legendary fighters like Georges St. Pierre. Remember how St. Pierre walked away from the sport at his peak, seemingly content with his achievements and unconcerned with outside noise?
Yeah, St. Pierre always seemed more zen about it all. He let his record speak for itself and didn't get caught up in the drama. And honestly, it probably enhanced his legacy in the long run.
It's an interesting comparison. While Jones seems driven by a need to prove himself, almost as if he's fighting against the world, St. Pierre seemed to find peace in his accomplishments and walked away on his own terms.
So is Jones's obsession with his legacy ultimately a strength or a weakness?
It's a complex question. On the one hand, this chip on his shoulder, this constant need to prove the doubters wrong, has probably fueled his competitive fire and pushed him to dominate in a way that few fighters ever have.
It's like he's using that negativity as fuel, turning it into motivation. And it's hard to argue with the results. He's been practically unbeatable inside the octagon.
Right, but the flip side of that is that this obsession could also be blinding him to the bigger picture. It might be preventing him from taking risks from fighting opponents who truly challenge him for fear of tarnishing his perfect record.
That's an interesting point, is he's so focused on maintaining this image of invincibility that he's missing out on opportunities to truly test himself and potentially solidify his legacy in a different way.
Precisely. And that's where the Aspinall situation becomes so fascinating. Is Jones avoiding Aspinall out of genuine fear of losing and tarnishing his legacy? Or is he simply playing the negotiation game, as we discussed earlier, sacrificing a potentially great fight now for a bigger payday later?
It's a tough one to call. And then there's the whole financial aspect. The article does mention that Jones has always been savvy about maximizing his earnings. Could that be a bigger factor than we realize?
It's definitely a piece of the puzzle that article points out that Jones has in the past made decisions that prioritize financial gain over legacy building fights.
Like when he chose to fight Thiago Santos instead of going for the heavyweight title right away. I remember fans were scratching their heads about that one. It seemed like a calculated move to secure an easier win and a big payday.
Yeah, exactly. So the question becomes, is he following a similar strategy now with Aspinall? Is he delaying the fight, knowing that the anticipation and hype will only grow, leading to a bigger payday when they finally do meet?
But wouldn't that contradict his obsession with legacy if he's seen as ducking Aspinall? Won't that hurt his reputation in the long run?
That's the dilemma. It seems like he's trying to walk a tightrope between securing his financial future and protecting his legacy. And as we know, tightropes are notoriously unstable.
So are we back to that Kevin Iole interview where he basically dismisses Aspinall as a threat? Is that part of this negotiation game, or is he just trying to convince himself?
It's hard to say for sure. The article points out that Jones's tone in the interview is incredibly dismissive, almost to a comical degree. It's either masterful manipulation or a level of self-deception that's almost Shakespearean.
So where does that leave us? We've got a fighter obsessed with his legacy, potentially sacrificing a challenging fight for a bigger payday down the line. And it all hinges on whether he's a calculated mastermind or a prisoner of his own ego.
And that's the beauty of it all, isn't it? This situation is so layered and complex. We're watching a real-life drama unfold with Jon Jones at the center battling his own internal demons, while simultaneously playing a high-stakes game with his career and legacy. It's captivating stuff.
Absolutely. So what are the potential outcomes of this whole saga?
Yeah.
What are the stakes for Jones as he navigates this crucial stage of his career? We'll explore that as we wrap up our deep dive right after this. Welcome back to the final round of our Jon Jones deep dive. We've been unpacking his controversial stance on fighting Tom Aspinall,
Yeah.
analyzing his motivations and trying to figure out what his endgame might be.
It's been a fascinating journey, hasn't it?
It really has.
We've gone from exploring his obsession with his legacy to dissecting his potential negotiation game.
Right.
And even touched upon those spicy drug test incidents
Oh, yeah.
that have added another layer of complexity to his career.
We've definitely covered a lot of ground, and it all circles back to that interview with Kevin Iole,
Yeah.
which our source article really dissects.
Right. That interview is like a Rorschach test for Jon Jones.
Okay.
His dismissive attitude towards Aspinall, coupled with his seemingly obsessive concern for how he's perceived, makes you wonder, is he trying to convince himself as much as he's trying to convince everyone else?
Okay, so let's step back and look at the big picture. What are the key takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, first and foremost, it's clear that Jon Jones is at a crossroads.
Okay.
He's achieved almost everything a fighter could dream of.
Right.
But his legacy is still very much in flux. His next move, especially regarding Aspinall, could make or break how he's remembered.
So the stakes are incredibly high, and we talked about how his obsession with legacy could be both a driving force and a potential downfall.
Exactly. It might be the fire that fuels his dominance.
Right.
But it could also make him hesitant to take risks to face opponents who could truly challenge him.
Yeah.
He might be so focused on protecting his undefeated image that he misses out on opportunities to solidify his legacy in a different way.
And then there's the financial aspect. We can't ignore the fact that Jones has always been smart about maximizing his earnings.
Absolutely, and that's where this whole negotiation game gets really interesting. He might be willing to delay a fight, even a challenging one, if it means a bigger payday down the line.
Right.
But is he risking his long-term legacy for short-term financial gain?
That seems to be the central question, doesn't it? Is he a brilliant strategist who's playing 4D chess while we're all stuck playing checkers? Or is he letting his ego and his bank account cloud his judgment?
It's a tough one to call, and honestly, I think that's what makes Jon Jones so fascinating. He's this incredibly talented, complex, and often contradictory figure. He's achieved greatness, but seems haunted by insecurity. He's dominant, yet seemingly afraid of a true challenge.
And the article leaves us with this thought-provoking question. If Jon Jones is truly the greatest, why would he be afraid of Tom Aspinall?
It's the perfect way to sum up the whole situation, isn't it? It challenges us to look beyond the surface and consider the deeper motivations, the calculated risks, and the potential consequences that are all intertwined in this fascinating saga.
So what do you think? Is Jones ducking Aspinall? Is he playing the long game, or is he just letting his ego get the better of him? We've given you the facts, the analysis, and the different perspectives. Now it's up to you to decide.
And whatever your conclusion, one thing is certain, Jon Jones's story is far from over. This situation with Aspinall is just another chapter in a career that has been full of twists, turns, and dramatic moments.
It's a reminder that even the greatest athletes are human with their own flaws, insecurities, and ambitions, and those complexities are what make them so compelling to watch both inside and outside the octagon.
Exactly. So keep your eyes peeled because this saga is far from over. The next move is Jon Jones's to make, and the world will be watching.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored the complex world of Jon Jones. Until next time.